welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing something that I really have not done before, but it just came to me. We're going to do a read-along on a story called The True Story of Jim the Wonder Dog. It's about supposedly the smartest dog in the world, and it's a really well-recommended book, and so I hope you enjoy this video. So this book, it's not too long, but it is about a dog who could supposedly, know foreign languages, see colors, which dogs supposedly do. This is based on a real story, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Today, we're going to be reading the first two chapters, Jim Meets Mr. Sam and Jim at School. I haven't read this before, but again, I've heard really good things about it, and so let's get into it. Chapter 1. Jim Meets Mr. Sam, West Plains, Missouri, spring 1925. The pup did not look like much. If you ignored his eyes, the small black and white canine traveler had ridden a bumpy train all the way from Louisiana to Missouri, some 500 miles in all, and he was exhausted. The weary puppy was on his way to hotel manager Sam Van Arsdale, a surprise gift from a clever traveling salesman. A few days earlier, the two men had enjoyed a friendly argument at Louisiana's Harcade Hotel about bird dogs, and Mr. Sam had confided that he was looking for a good pup to train for hunting. The salesman had told him about his new litter of Lillywheen English setters. He had gone on and on about what fine dogs and hunters Lillywheen setters were. Mr. Sam had accused him of bragging and passed on the opportunity to buy one, but if Mr. Sam had thought he had gotten the last word, he was wrong. The surprise was the floppy, big-footed, 6-week-old pup of the salesman's litter, the one he had not been able to sell. Never mind that the puppy's grandpa was hunting bird dog champion Candy Kid. What would the uppity hotel man do with such an ungainly pup? The salesman had likely wondered, thinking the last laugh would indeed be on Mr. Sam. Back at the hotel, the crate with literal setter arrived, addressed to Mr. Sam. The puzzled hoteler took one peek inside and had the crate taken to the backyard and opened. The pup bounded out of his wooden container and onto Missouri soil. He was tail wagging, excited as he greeted his new master. Mr. Sam took one long, slow look at the dog and decided that his new black and white surprise was just plain ugly. Fittingly, he gave his pain puppy a plain name, Jim. He had no idea what to do with Jim. Not long after Jim's arrival, Mr. Sam went away on a month-long fishing trip. He left his 80-year-old niece, Dorothy, in charge of Jim. Dorothy cuddled her new friend and fed him warm milk and scraps from the table. She taught Jim manners as well. Soon the wiggly pup was managing to stay put until Dorothy called, just like a big dog. The little girl and the little dog played lots of hide-and-seek over the next few weeks while Mr. Sam was away. And no matter where Dorothy hid, Jim always found her. Sometimes Dorothy made Jim lie quietly under a cardboard box while she hid her doll. Then she would tell him to go find Dolly. Jim always did, with no fooling around. When the month was up, Dorothy could not wait to tell her uncle about how smart Jim was. She told him the puppy had sense and seems to understand everything she had said to him. Mr. Sam thanked his niece for taking care of Jim, but he still wasn't convinced that Jim was anything special. The pup was just fetching the doll the same way a hunting dog would fetch a bird. Nothing special about that. Chapter 2. Jim at School. Mr. Sam was not a man to have a dog only as a pet, and Jim would be no exception. When Mr. Sam wasn't working at the hotel, he enjoyed hunting. To help find birds, he used hunting dogs, what locals called bird dogs. If the bird dogs didn't perform, if they didn't flesh out birds on a hunt, they were good for nothing as far as Mr. Sam and his friends were concerned. If Jim was ever going to be a hunter, now was the time to learn. If not, maybe it was time for him to go. A bird dog uses his nose to search a field until he finds or catches the scent of a special kind of bird. Mr. Sam hunted quail, a game bird used for food. When a dog smells quail, he lifts a paw and points his nose to where the birds are. This is called coming up on point. The hunter then walks toward the spot until the birds burst from the grass from the sky and freedom. If the hunter's aim is true and he shoots one of the game birds, then the dog goes and finds it and brings it to the master, carrying it softly in his mouth so he doesn't break it. Although some breeds of dogs, such as setters, are born to hunt, there remains a lot for our pup to learn to do it right. So Mr. Sam took Jim to a dog trainer who could teach the puppy what he needed to know to be useful. A week went by, and there was still no word from the trainer. Another week went by, and still only silence. A few weeks later, Mr. Sam up and called the trainer himself to see how Jim was doing. The news was not good. The trainer said Jim wasn't doing much. The other puppies in class spent their days dashing around the hot, dry, empty field, searched for a convoy of birds. Jim sat under the shade tree and watched the other dogs look for something that wasn't there. Was this dog lazy or dumb or smart like a fox? What good was a hunting dog that wouldn't hunt? Mr. Sam thought about giving Jim away. The trainer said he would take Jim. Any dog smart enough to stay out of the hot sun was something special, and those intelligent eyes of Jim's looked almost human. How could one ignore that Jim's seeming conviction that no birds were to be found in the field always proved right, despite the zealous efforts from the other pups to show otherwise? Mr. Sam hesitated. It was unseasonably warm. Maybe if Jim stayed with the trainer a little long, he would learn to hunt. After pondering the options a little longer, Mr. Sam decided to give the pup one more chance to prove himself. It soon seemed like a fool's errand. The trainer found Jim to be simply impossible to teach. Despite his best efforts, the dog could not be made to do anything he didn't want to do. The trainer would give Jim a simple order. Jim would stare back at him with those big brown eyes, as if he was trying to tell him, "I know better." Finally, the quail season arrived. It was November. The weather was cool. There would be no excuses for Jim this time on this outing. When the big day arrived for Jim to be tested, the trainer took Jim and Mr. Sam to a field that had once been an old apple orchard. The man was sure that there were birds to be found there. The question was, would Jim be able to find them? The trainer gave Jim the command to hunt, and then the trainer and Mr. Sam watched in amazement. Jim did no searching in the fields that day, yet he seemed to know right where the birds were. He calmly went straight toward a convoy of birds and came on point. When it was time to retrieve a bird for Mr. Sam, the dog did it quickly and gently. They hunted all day. Jim reported like a bird dog, genius, over and over again. Mr. Sam was more than pleased. He told the trainer that now he would never give Jim away. The dog certainly was not a joke. Maybe he was special after all. That's the end for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell. As soon as I can, I'll get the next 2 chapters uploaded, and we'll see what happens to Jim next. See you next time. I'm going to do a summary at the end of these videos every time we do it, and so we're not really in detail, but I just want to know how he got this, like maybe if it was the trainer, or if it was that little girl training with him, or how he got this. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see what happens in the next 2 chapters.